and welcome back to Good Nightmare, a podcast where today I have a special Halloween treat for you. This episode was actually written by a friend of mine and fellow podcaster, Augie Peterson. Augie actually runs one of my favourite podcasts, Short Stories of Augie Peterson. I absolutely love her writing, the strange and compelling tales that she comes up with, and the way that she tells them. And today I hope to do it justice in telling you one of her stories that she has so kindly written for me today. I have no doubt that you may recognise the characters towards the end of the story, but you've probably never heard it told like this before. I'll be linking Augie's social media in the show notes, so make sure to go over to her page and give her a listen. You won't regret it. Hey, Pops! A young blonde-haired boy who looked to be about 17 shouted across the street to a harried man walking towards Hendrick's Liquors. He glanced both ways before jogging across the crosswalk and slowed down as he reached the man. Pressing a $20 bill into the grimy fingers of his target, he said, "Want to spot me a fifth of vodka tonight?" "Humphrey, I can't. Not after last time. I think Mr. Hendricks is onto me." The old black man looked regrettably into Humphrey's green eyes and held the bill out in front of him, clasped, as if it were a dirty sock, between his forefinger and thumb. "Pops," Humphrey continued softly, resting his hands on the man's shoulders, ignoring the money and biting his thin lower lip. "I need a fix for tonight. And if I can't get it from you, I might just have to see what that wife of yours is up to instead." Serious eyes with a touch of playful energy looked into a pair that nearly wept with fright. "Okay, Fry, I can help you out tonight. I can help you out. Please don't bother my wife with this. You know she thinks I quit drinking years ago." "Oh, I know, Pops," Humphrey said, with a reassuring nod of his head. "Your secret is safe with me." The elderly man limped into the shop and returned 20 minutes later. Humphrey ran a hand through his short, straight blonde hair, assuring his streaked locks were still parted down the centre, and smiled. His tan, angular face picked up the details of his thin, dark lips and straight teeth with an almost feminine-like beauty. "Hey, just in time. I have to catch the 8 o'clock bus. Thanks, Pops. Keep the change." The old man nodded and hurried off towards his dented sedan. Humphrey ran back across the street and sat on the bench inside the plexiglass walls of the bus stop. He shifted his eyes one way, then the other, and opened the oversized denim jacket he was wearing to securely tuck the bottle into an inner pocket. Within moments, a city bus with an adult-sized mountain bike secured to the rack on the front appeared and stopped before him. Humphrey stood with excited, bouncing energy, elated that his plan had worked so smoothly. He climbed the metal steps of the bus, smiled and winked at the overweight white woman sitting in the driver's seat. She was less than amused, and glared at his odd hairstyle and single, long earring. His smile faded. He scanned his bus pass and made his way down the centre aisle. A handful of people were already on board, all wearing average clothing, hugging purses and other personal effects to their chests, and looking morose and depressed as they watched the streetlights through the window. One passenger stood out, however, a police officer in full uniform. Once Humphrey spied the biking helmet on the seat to her right, he realised the officer must be taking the bus back from her shift as a bike patrol officer. She turned her large brown eyes towards him and smiled as he passed, then turned her attention back to the cell phone in her hand. He swallowed the small lump of fear that formed in his throat and clutched the concealed bottle tightly to his chest. He took his seat, in the window seat in the last row on the right side, and pulled out his phone to pass the time. A text message was waiting for him once he did. "I love you, baby. Just wanted to remind you." Humphrey smiled widely down at the screen and sent back, "I love you too. On my way home now with the stuff." Almost immediately, several heart eye emojis and the words, "This anniversary will be the best one yet," appeared. Humphrey pocketed the phone after sending a heart emoji back as a reply, and, still smiling wide, looked out the window. A few minutes passed before boredom that even social media could not placate sank in. He still had about 20 minutes left before he was close to home. A quick glance towards the back of the officer's head told him she was still preoccupied with what was on her phone. He toyed with the smooth surface of the glass beneath his jacket and couldn't push the temptation to take a single sip. The only rush better than the one he'd felt after the success of his heist earlier would be to do something illegal within feet of the only person on this bus who could do anything about it. His eyes never leaving the officer's neat dark bun, he reached for the neck of the bottle from the brown paper bag in which it was resting. Feeling around the neck, he found the top and twisted. The twist top snapped quietly under the layers of his jacket. His plan was to complete his task in one motion. Grasp the bottle, take a swig, and place it back into his jacket. Holding his hand around the tall glass neck, he hesitated and even reconsidered for a moment, yet persisted in the face of the thrill. He pulled, but he hadn't anticipated the weight of the bottle. He hit his teeth, the liquid spilled onto his clothes, and he muttered a subconscious "ouch." Pausing with the bottle in his hands for a brief second to check that his tooth had not chipped. In that second, however, the officer turned around. She saw the bottle in his hand and rolled her eyes. She supposed she could let this one slide because she was technically off the clock. Humphrey was relieved, albeit a bit disappointed, that he'd chased a thrill with no consequences. He stared at the back of her head intently. She watched his reflection on the glass window. He screwed the cap back on and reached for the brown paper bag in his jacket, his eyes never leaving the officer, just in case. In a whirlwind of events, Humphrey grasped the brown paper bag with some difficulty from his jacket. The officer spied this movement in his reflection and, paired with his intense stare at the back of her head, saw the bottle in his hand and that he was reaching for something more from the folds of his jacket, stood and walked to the center aisle and held her weapon at attention, pointed at the young man. She had to prepare for the worst. After all, she had just witnessed a minor commit a crime. Maybe he was attempting to eliminate all witnesses. In a city with crime rates as high as this one, an officer could never be too careful. Her eyes were sharp, attentive, and she was overall alert. Ignoring the gasps and screams of the other occupants of the bus, she trained her weapon on the boy, now frozen in place, a bottle of vodka in one hand, a brown paper bag clutched in the other, still concealed behind a thick swath of denim. The driver, aware and terrified, kept driving so she wouldn't put the bus off its schedule. "Don't move another muscle," the officer said. Her tone was cold, loud and confident. I'm just, Humphrey said, and moved the hand holding the bag a bit, attempting to reveal to her what it was. "I said don't move," she cried. Humphrey listened this time. "Remove your hand from your pocket, put the bottle down and stand up." "I just want to show you it's not..." He made the mistake of ignoring her orders yet again. This time, she wasn't so kind. A shot fired and Humphrey slumped over in his seat. The driver swerved the bus to the curb and stopped. Thanks to the seated position in which he had still been frozen, there was no more than a head and shoulders for the officer to aim at. She did what she had to do. She couldn't be sure he wasn't a threat. Blurred eyes opened and scanned a bright hospital room. Humphrey moaned as the pain his sleeping mind had hidden all came rushing to his consciousness. What the hell? What happened? Oh my God, baby, you're awake, said a voice to his right. Sonia, Humphrey's loyal girlfriend of 4 years, sat by his bedside with a book in her lap. She wore a pair of grey sweatpants, a white long-sleeved shirt, and her long brown hair was tied up in a messy bun at the top of her head. She wore no makeup, looked tired and had bags beneath her eyes. Scattered around the room were cards, flowers, and personal items from Humphrey's bedroom. She smiled and rested her hand on his. Tears filled her eyes and she kissed his forehead. I am so happy to see you. I was worried you wouldn't wake up. Wake up? What? His voice was raw. His head ached, and he wheezed a bit as he tried to breathe. I'll go grab the doctors. They can explain it better than I can. Sonia rose and headed towards the door, pausing for a moment to stare back at him with a disbelieving shake of her head. It wasn't long before Sonia returned with a bespectacled, middle-aged white man following her through the door. She took her seat yet again and held Humphrey's hand as the doctor spoke. Mr. Dumfrey, how are you feeling? I don't know, Humphrey stammered. Well, you'll be right as rain in no time, I'm sure. You've experienced some extreme trauma, my friend. The doctor looked down at the chart. It seems 4 months ago you were shot in the head after a misunderstanding with a police officer on a bus. 4 months? Yes, you sustained some severe brain injuries. You were unresponsive after surgery, but we had high hopes that you would wake up. We had hoped it wouldn't take so long, but we're all thankful to see you again. We have your recovery plan all mapped out. You'll be cared for by the best team of professionals this hospital has to offer. They're going to do their best to get you back to your old self. Humphrey stayed silent, blinking through vision that was still hazy. The doctor smiled and left the room. Sonia gently squeezed the hand she was holding. Oh, Fry, this is such amazing news. You missed so much while you were gone. I can't wait. Humphrey raised a hand and sent a confused look towards the girl. I'm sorry, but who are you? That is the story of Humphrey Dumfrey by Augie Peterson. When I asked Augie to write a story for me, I didn't have any expectations. I was so excited to be surprised, and surprised I was. I never would have picked Humpty Dumpty as the basis for such a dark and kind of exciting tale. I hope I did the story justice. I am not a voice actor by any means, but oh my goodness, was it fun trying. I hope you've enjoyed this slightly more lighthearted and relaxed Halloween episode. Remember to check the show notes for Augie's links. Subscribe to Good Nightmare to be updated anytime I upload a new episode. And reach out to me on social media at goodnightmare_s on Instagram and Twitter, or via email at goodnightmare_s@outlook.com if you'd like to get in touch about the show or just for a chat. And as always, until next time, sweet dreams.